My name's Caitlin and this is the Amplify podcast. I'll be speaking to music educators and young musicians to hear their thoughts on music education. So, hi, I'm Caitlin Lee. This is my Amplify podcast. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Ben McCabe. I'm the creative producer at More Music. I'm also a music leader and project manager for our early years stuff. I'm a freelance musician a little bit as well.
My name is Chris Guenault and I'm really happy to be here.
Hi, my name's Chris Bridges. I'm a teacher at Ridgewood Community High School. I'm a music specialist there. I'm also a performing musician.
Okay, so first question. If you play a musical instrument, what musical instrument do you play?
I play drum kit mainly, and I play French horn a little bit. I can play the piano if I've written it.
My first instrument is bass trombone, and I also dabble in a few other brass instruments and piano and things like that.
I'm a trombonist by trade. I studied trombone at the Royal Northern College of Music about 1 million years ago. I also play a lot of piano. And in the last quite a few years, I've done quite a lot of singing as well. Oh, and I got caught playing the tuba a few days ago on a gig.
Now that we've got to know everyone, we can move on to the bigger questions, more related to music education. So the first thing I want to know is, could you tell me a little bit about your journey through music education up until the point where you're at now?
My mum sang in church choir, and I went to do that with her from when I can remember, kind of thing. My mum had a piano at home. She used to practice a lot as well. So I was sort of around music, and I was allowed to play the piano even though I couldn't play it. I was allowed to do whatever I wanted. So that was nice, and I was encouraged. My dad's like a massive music fan, and from quite a young age he started taking me to gigs. And we lived in London, so there's lots of good stuff to see, and he, like, one of the first gigs he took me to see was Miles Davis. So that was inspirational, and I think that's how I got into trying to play the trumpet. Well, I didn't practice enough, is probably the real truth. But he said my embouchure looked a bit like his sisters who played the French horn, so we had to go on the French horn. This is like by the time I was in secondary school. And playing the French horn's quite good because at that time, not many other people played. So there was always a spot to play in the orchestra or other groups. As well as playing French horn at secondary school, I ended up playing drum kit just to try it out because my school sort of ridiculously well provided for music. It was absolutely amazing. There were three music teachers, and we used to go on a music tour every year to Europe. And the other thing that was happening at school was people made little rock bands, and so I was in a couple of bands with friends, and we'd make strange music and play covers and stuff. So yeah, it's just an insane environment to be in, and I was very, very, very lucky. And I wish I'd practiced more to make more of it. Lots of people went to music college at the end of that school, but I didn't. I nearly sort of tried to, but I thought it was a bit too competitive for my personality or something. Did a bit of music at university. I did religious studies, but you could do bits of music as well. I did have music lessons with a French horn player in the Halle, but I didn't get on with him. That was pretty demotivating. I was still in bands. I was playing drums with friends. We were trying to get gigs and trying to get record deals a little bit and things like that, but never really got anywhere. But made lots of nice music and still play music with those people. There was like a music society at university, so I did a few bits and pieces of orchestral stuff and singing. When I finished university, the place where I work now, More Music, had an advert to join a creative jazz orchestra called Off the Rails. And so I went along to that and met loads of musicians through that. So my job title is creative producer. That includes book musicians to come and play at the venue. We try and get people to do workshops as well as come to do a gig, or collaborate with one of our community bands or with local musicians. Made lots of quite nice things happen over the years. Like there's a really great band came to play called Moulettes, and we made an orchestra of the bottom end for them. So like all like low instruments came and played massive bass lines on a couple of their tunes. That was quite good fun. And choirs have joined people as backing vocalists quite a lot. So that sort of thing. As part of creative producer role, I also work with some of the commissions. Like at the moment, we're working towards a community choir performance at Lancashire Encounter Festival. So that's one thing I do. But the thing I like doing the most is music workshops of all varieties. So I work with Bay Beats Street Band, which is, I think, More Music's longest running project. It's totally open access; anyone can come. So you have to make the music fit whoever turns up, and find ways in for different people to join in and feel good about being there. Other regular things I do are kind of mainly school delivery sort of stuff, and that's often about songwriting with children, or making arrangements like to explore different topics at school. It's often like using music to look at different bits of the curriculum, like so looking at the water cycle or something like that through instrumental playing. Most of my stuff in schools is with primary school age children. I'm the project manager for our early years stuff, so that's music with children aged under 5, and I really love that. In recent years, we've been working out how to be kind of more creative with that rather than just singing nursery rhymes, which is invaluable and brilliant. But we've been like making environments for children and their families to freely play in and make musical discoveries.
I had quite a musical upbringing in that my parents were both, although not professional, they were both musicians. My dad was an engineer, but also played piano and clarinet when he was younger, and my mum was a primary school teacher but studied music as well. Yeah, he was just always there around us. So I think I began first with the piano and singing, and probably about at the age of 6, I think I had a go on my first brass instrument. I was given a tenor horn, which I played until my 2 front teeth fell out, and after that dabbled in a few other different brass instruments. I settled late primary school, early high school on the trombone, and then actually moved onto the French horn. My mum originally played French horn, and so there was one in the house, and the Lancashire School Symphony Orchestra, who I had recently joined on the trombone, needed a French horn at the time, and so we thought may as well give that a go, and so I played on that for a few years. I kind of felt that it wasn't quite for me. I had a lot of things that I struggled with, and I think I was 15, maybe 16, when I then changed to bass trombone, and that was great. It was just the one for me. It was brilliant. I had been learning with a Lancashire music teacher, French horn teacher. He helped me make the transition onto trombone before I then went to junior RNCM, the Royal Northern College of Music, which was a Saturday school. And then I auditioned for the Royal Northern College of Music and got in and went to do my undergrad music degree. Yeah, it was great. And I started doing little bits of education work. I think it's something I've always been aware of through my mum as a teacher. And when opportunities came to do workshop and do a bit of private teaching came up, I was always really enjoyed it. And so when I left music college, I decided that I wanted to do more work in education, and I worked for a music service in Manchester called One Education, and I also applied to be involved with Lancashire Music Service and started doing some peripatetic teaching for Lancashire. But at the same time, I was doing some work with a music charity called Live Music Now through a trombone quartet called Sliding About. And what we would do is go into different schools like SEND settings and mainstream schools, but also pupil referral units and places like that. And we would go and deliver one-off workshops, but also short-term projects and residencies and things like that. And that was brilliant because you just got to work with all sorts of people with different experiences, sometimes with musicians who have been playing for years and sometimes with people who had never touched an instrument before in their lives. And that was really special. I think that's really informed me the way I approach music education now. I then moved on to working with In Harmony Opera North over in Leeds. And I am just coming to the end of 4 years working with them. And that's been a really special project that I've enjoyed being involved with. Now in September, I'm going to be working a little bit more with Lancashire and also working with a music charity, which is providing funding opportunities, but also educational opportunities for young musicians.
So I was at a comprehensive school, so just a normal one. I started playing recorders in primary school, then moved on to an instrument called a baritone, which is a brass band instrument, then took up trombone in secondary education. It wasn't necessarily going to be kind of what I did, but then as I got to the back end of school, there's that kind of realization that, yes, I did really enjoy it. I love making music. I was in county youth orchestra. This is in Northamptonshire. There was quite a good county youth music organisation there at the time, and then went to the RNCM in Manchester. After the RNCM, I was kind of doing bits of playing, but then went into music therapy and became a music therapist, working in all kinds of places around the northwest. So mostly special schools, some work in hospitals, but my work in schools over the years led to a point where I did my teacher training, and so since then I've worked as a music specialist in special schools, and I've currently got a full-time job as a teacher. So within all of that, I've also been involved with some of the community music things. So I always knew about more music from when it was just like a little lock-up with loads and loads of instruments in it, just near Morecambe Seafront. But I've done the odd thing, working for Pete Moser, doing like the odd workshop and helping out playing. But in Burnley, because I live and work in Burnley, I was also involved in a project called DAMAC, which was combining Asian and English music, British music, and different styles, which was a great thing. Yeah, and the nice thing is, as part of my role as a music teacher at Ridgewood, I chair the SEND Music Teachers Forum, which has been lovely. So I keep in touch with other music teachers, specialists, and keep in touch with what's going on at More Music as well, and the other bits of the hub.
Were there certain elements of your music education that you preferred over others?
Well, I just love the bits where you're in a room making a real piece of music with people. I love those bits. So whenever I was doing that, I think I was very happy and felt part of making something real happen. I'm terrible at practicing and still am, and get very stressed about it. I did do some exams on the French horn, some grades, but I think I quite liked that. It was a little bit scary going and doing it. And if you do well, it's sort of a really lovely feeling. And if you don't do well, there's always next time. And I think I was very supported by my music teachers. I think the thing I hadn't liked are the just that moment when I went to university, and I just lost any kind of structure about music making. I suppose there wasn't a thing to go to every week, and I didn't really belong to anything or know anyone. So I think that's why I kind of lost my way with French horn playing. Then this guy who was teaching me, he just wasn't very warm. He was just more like kind of demanding, and I need a bit more encouragement than that.
I think anything that involves ensembles or choirs, anything that involves working with other people, I'm one of those that I'm not always great playing on my own. It's all about interaction with others that really makes me tick. And so playing in the county ensembles in the orchestra and singing in the school choir and in the school bands, I think that's the bit I've always enjoyed the most.
I think everything I did at the time was the right thing for me. So yeah, school brass band, school orchestra, and then the county youth orchestra. They're all great because if you're out playing and working with other people, then you're learning and getting better. I think that's the most important part of it. Yeah, I think if I was looking at little me now, I'd say, kind of that'd be the thing. I'd say keep playing all the time with other people. Yeah, maybe work a bit harder at home as well.
What inspired you to have involvement in music as part of your career?
So I suppose seeing people on TV and knowing that there was a career option in music when I was little, seeing other people from school go off onto music college, all that kind of stuff maybe tempted me to think I might be able to do that. On a kind of nice parallel, just being part of big ensembles, at school, and then joining this Off the Rails big band when I finished university, and then through that I got some little jobs doing corporate team building workshops with samba drumming, and you'd have 1,000 people in the room playing together. I didn't decide to do music as a career, but I've definitely followed the opportunity to make music with groups of people. And then I got lucky and have had an awful lot of leg ups from very generous people to give me bits of work.
I've always loved the feeling of performing in a group. I've said that already, and the meeting different people, and when you have those moments when you're playing in a group and it all just seems to click. You don't need to talk about it. It just all works. And I don't know about you, but I always get this kind of goosebumpy feeling. And I haven't really found that anywhere else. So music is just that thing that just excites me to listen to it, to play it, to talk about it. And so I just wanted to keep going on with that. I think I always wanted to be a performer first and foremost. That what I was taught to do was taught to perform. But I've increasingly found that actually working in education and with young people is what really speaks to me. Yeah, just the opportunity to keep doing that and keep finding new avenues to do that in is brilliant. And I feel very, very lucky to be able to do that for a career.
That's really simple. Can't do anything else. Just not very good at anything else, yeah.
How do you decide which direction to go down when teaching a specific student? And is this different for groups and individuals?
Well, in the moment, you're just following the energy in the room. Probably don't talk about stuff enough. Probably just use my instincts. Trust my instincts quite a lot. With Bay Beat Street Band, we'll talk to people a lot about... People will definitely sort of say what they'd like to do next. I think it's open and listening enough for people to say if they need to work on a particular section.
I think it's all got to be about that dialogue with the student or the groups. A lot of my work is actually groups, especially in large groups. That can be a little bit trickier because if you're still on your own with 30 pupils in front of you, you can't always make sure that every single little bit is tailored to each individual, but you can try your best to be inclusive and engage everybody. I think one of the first things I'd do is just try and have that dialogue, try and have that conversation with the students over what music do they like listening to, what music they might like playing, because sometimes listening and playing can be different. And then just keep open-minded and always being ready to try and read the room and just adapt. I think it's just all about that dialogue, just constantly being open to what the young musician you're working with wants to learn and how they can best learn.
The obvious starting point for any specific student is always going to be where they're at. And there's nothing more obvious than that in working with children with special needs. If you're teaching a group, you have to have some agenda and some idea of what you would like to happen in that. Even if something brilliant happens and it can change direction, if you've got a group of students, you still need to have some level of control to be able to make sure everything stays safe. A slightly odd word to use in this setting, but you need to make sure everyone's okay, everyone's joining in, everyone's a part of what's happening. There has to be a bit more kind of control and an idea, an overarching idea from the beginning.
So the main focus of my podcast was to look at music education and people's opinions and experiences surrounding that. Because as part of the Amplify project, a survey showed that a lot of young people believe that music education is pretty average. What is your thoughts and opinions on this, and how do you think we can, as pupils, teachers, parents, governments, can change this and allow people to have a better experience with music education?
Well, you see, I suppose I'm thinking mainly of people's school music education. It's just different in different schools. You get teachers at different stages of their kind of life, and their teachers are supported differently as well. With if they book us to come in for a workshop, that could be spending half of their school's music budget for the year. for a day with us. Most of the teachers I come across do really well with music, but the room there is for music in the year seems pretty tiny, and it's just sad. If people feel their music education is average, that's just sort of sad, really.
I think it needs to be always student-led. It's got to be that two-way relationship between the leader and the learners. If I'm stood up just teaching my own agenda, then it's not necessarily going to speak to everybody. It might be what interests me, but it might not be what interests you. Music is so subjective. It's so personal that we all have different things that inspire us. Some of them can be really unique and sometimes quite niche. That's what makes music amazing, is how personal it is and how many different ways around it there are. And so if you've always got that conversation going, that you're trying to explore these different areas, and so that it is sometimes that I'm saying to the learner, tell me about your thing, let's listen to it, let's learn about it, and I'm going to learn about it here, and then I can help you with the other knowledge that I have, and you can teach me a bit as well. And so if we're always having that two-way relationship dialogue, then I suppose everybody's always going to be thinking about it, and you will enable that young musician to be inspired and be engaged and do what they really want to do.
Well, there's obviously banging on about funding. I think where music is really, really successful, and there was a comprehensive school down the road from me when I was at school, where they had an amazing brass band. They were incredible. It was called Beanfield Band, and it's down to those individuals. And I think this is the trouble with music: is it is often down to an individual who isn't necessarily an amazing musician himself, but just kind of has the capacity and the drive to make things happen. It's kind of like finding a way that the music hubs can inspire more people working in schools to be that person who kind of absolutely wants to kind of change music in their school and make it amazing. Yeah, how do we get in touch with those people, make more people be more inspirational?
Thank you all for taking the time to speak to me and sharing your opinions, and hopefully this is a huge turning point in music education, allowing more students to have good experiences with music education rather than ones that seem average. And thank you to everyone for listening. I hope you enjoyed our conversations and you found them enlightening or educational or just something interesting. Following research into music education in Lancashire and the UK as a whole, this is my final thoughts. It has been concluded that many young people believe that their music education is average. The word average is a number expressing the central or typical value in a set of data. So it highlights that for something to be average, there needs to be some above and some below to determine a central measure. Upon speaking to various music educators, it is clear that music education is quite average. Some people have had a very positive experience with their education, whereas others have had a more negative experience. I have managed to come to the conclusion that it is very much depends on the portrayal of the syllabus. If a teacher is passionate about what they are teaching and is able to adapt to the student, then the student is likely to have a much more positive and enriching experience in their music education. However, if the teacher just teaches the set lessons, students are likely to get bored and not enjoy learning about the art that music is. As a student myself, I have seen firsthand how the teacher influences the student's passion subjects. I have had multiple piano teachers, and the most adaptable teacher I had helped me fall in love with the art of music because he ensured that he was teaching in a way that excited me while also ensuring that I learned all the key skills I would need to be a modern musician. I believe it is not always about teaching to the exam board, unless that is the route that your particular student wants to go down. It's about teaching a student things they may not necessarily be taught in their formal education, like how chord inversion works, or how you can add more depth to a piece of music, or even how to restring a guitar. Something that will help them to become a musician in pop music and more modernised pieces. I believe that if young people got the opportunity to speak to exam boards and let them know their thoughts, we would be able to modernise the curriculum in a way that will not only teach students how to create and produce modern music, but also demonstrate a way in which we can pursue careers in music. So overall, the music education is somewhat average. However, through adaptation of the curriculum and modernisation of teaching and the teachers, the average could be improved massively, increasing the number of students seeing music as a realistic career choice and inspiring them to take GCSE and A-level music, as the past year has seen a huge decrease in this. This has been the Amplify podcast.